In recording? Yes.
Good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's February 18th, 2025. This is the GBUS work session regarding Girdwood Industrial Park with the revised time of 6:30. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25 public meetings. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors operates under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. I call this meeting to order at 33. I'm Brianna Sullivan, co-chair and fire department supervisor. The land acknowledgement. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors acknowledges the indigenous peoples of Alaska whose land we reside on. The community of Girdwood, situated between the areas known to be Dena'ina and Alutiiq homeland, respects the people who were stewards of this land for generations. We commit to the continued stewardship of this land and are grateful to be a part of a wider community that seeks to maintain a sustainable use of Girdwood Valley for present and future peoples. Who is in the room?
Say my name.
It's Kelly.
Jennifer Wingard, Land Use Supervisor.
Oh, Kelly, I public safety.
Oh, okay, Brian there.
And Mike Edgington is excused tonight. And we'll have Brian say his name on the record when he comes closer to the table. Are there any disclosures tonight? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for the agenda revision or approval.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, agenda is approved. And before you start with this,
Sorry, I'm late.
thanks, Brian. Just say you're here, please. You just say you're here.
Brian Burnett here.
All right, thank you. Awesome. All right, Girdwood Industrial Park, go. I know we had a packet for this too, which is the HLB presentation from October 24. Thank you all for being here. And I guess if staff has any recommendation of how to
So-
kick off here.
HLB has, as you guys well know, came and give a presentation on the different options for the future of the industrial park. And they gave their preference to that, which was option 2 here. And so at this point in time, they are waiting for feedback from GBUS as to what the thoughts were on the different options and what direction the community and GBUS would like to go with the industrial park going forward. And so tonight we're hoping that the discussion can help lead to some more thought from and answering any questions that we maybe take it back to HLB. In the long run, from a staff perspective, we're hoping we get to a point where the Girdwood service area lot can be solidified in a position there, which in this category would basically be this 2.5 acres here, which is lot A, and then maybe that from a staff perspective, that's our main goal, is to get that lot carved out so that we can house road, parks, and fire. And then and outside of that, we are supportive as to what direction the community wants to go with the rest of the land. So that's where we're at, and the goal in the end is to get feedback back to HLB to move a process forward.
Thank you, Kyle. Jennifer?
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody else has been working on this, but as land use supervisor, I waded into this a little bit because it was starting to seem like a tangle. And so I talked to HLB, talked to Kyle, and I think we can pull some pieces out of the tangle and maybe tackle one piece at a time. And so to tack on to what Kyle just said, if we just pull out A, instead of thinking of like the whole industrial park, what we're going to do with the whole industrial park, we just pull out A and say that I think there's a case to be made that since that is currently being used with the Girdwood Valley service area, roads and fire, that as GBOS, we have a vested interest, and the Girdwood Valley, more than any other lot, has a very strong interest in A. So like for starters, one place that we could start with this is saying to HLB, can we talk about transferring, communicating to HLB that we are interested in transferring ownership, if at all possible, over to the Girdwood Valley Service Area. Now, there is plating that needs to be done, and the plating costs money. One of the things we're hearing a couple of different things from stakeholders on these, and different things from different stakeholders in different lots. So to cover I would propose that to cover help with the cost of the plating. First of all, Girdwood Valley Service Area could offer to help with some of the plating, particularly for A. Also, we could indicate an interest in principle in the disposal of B and or D.
Can you scroll up, Kat?
Sure.
See the whole letters? Thank you. Jennifer, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
What is does any of the fire training happen in B at all, or is it all in A?
That's a very good question. Right now, the Girdwood Valley Service, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Kyle, because this is your area more than it, but we are using A
And B.
and B, but we would fit on A.
We would put everything, all services would go onto A. So one thing that would have to happen with platting out A for Girdwood Valley Service Area's operations is that Bob Wolf is the current permittee there, and he would have to be relocated in that aspect. Right now, we as Girdwood Valley Service Area is that we're spread across A, B, and C in this diagram here. Because in order for us to get power, or actually that line that runs between C and B is where the transformer is, and that's where we hooked up. True Gas won't bring power to us until we know where the defined corners are of a lot. And so right now the fire department can't really do training because there's nowhere for them, because they're squeezed between three driveways, one to our location, one to Bob Wolf's, and then one back to the back side of B here. So we would move everything onto A, that would get zoned out, and then that would allow us to do all the flexibilities for the different service departments here in the valley.
So if it was platted and we had A, all of our needs could be met. And then as I understand it right now, C is where most of the lessees are, other than Bob Wolf. And then in talking to some of the current people, D would be the one that people would be most interested in buying because it's the smallest. And then my other reflection is that C is the location of future expansion. So
Can I summarize
Yes.
what I?
Well, one thing about C, if I can just check, you're absolutely right. And then one thing about C, when I talked to HLB, they're willing to hold on to C and so continue leasing it. And so that was interesting to me because the way this presentation was written, it seemed like it was an all or nothing presentation, but they're actually very willing to hold on to C. Hold on to, they're interested in disposing of what they can dispose of, but they said not only would they hold on to C, but they could commit to doing it for a certain number of years. In other words, not just for 1 year. I know that that's been problematic for the leasees a little bit, but we don't have a couple things about C. As Kelly said, we need that. If we dispose of C, we lose the potential to expand. Right. And that was one of the things I heard from members of the community is concerned that we can't then access phase 3 because the road right away comes right through that net of.
So there's a certain elegance if we could say plat it, sell D and B, commit A to the service area and maintain C for a number of years, 3 to 5 comes to mind. That gives us the ability to see what happens in the service area and what needs develop over time. Because right now, what's difficult about making a decision is like, we know Girdwood's growing, but we don't know how, we don't, and so the sale of D and B can also test the market. How interested are people? Is there some unknown buyer out there that's coming to try and take over Girdwood while not threatening the current lessees on C and ousting, talking to some of them, they would rather continue to lease because it is so inexpensive to lease, but they need the predictability. So if they could get a 3-year lease, then maybe. So it seems like if HLB is willing to do that, to me, it seems like there's an elegance where our needs are met, future expandability needs is met. We test the market with disposal, and people who really need the ability to have a long-term plan are satisfied, and nobody gets evicted because C remains in leases, and so businesses are largely uninterrupted. So it seems like the obvious elegant solution, since you figured out, or since they were willing to tell you, oh, there's said less, dude, you just missed my flipping summary.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna go back because, okay, but I think, does everybody know Sam?
It's,
Sam, you should come on up to the table. It's
Yeah.
not just her GBOs. Yeah, no.
The different setup.
I didn't know very well if any were gonna be coming.
Because it seems there's a potential really elegant solution on the table, and that is we plat it, service area needs A. HLB is willing to hold on to C and keep it as long-term leases, and that gives the future expansion. So we could say, and they're willing to commit to a time. So we could say, hold on to C for 3 to 5 years and keep it in the lease pool. And in 3 to 5 years or however long, when we know what Girdwood really needs, we can expand or not expand. In the meantime, sell D and B so they get some revenue to pay for the platting and whatever, put in their bank account and buy nice things. And so we get service area need met, current lessees in C are undisturbed. People who want to buy can buy D and B. We get a sense of who the market is and if there's some unknown buyer trying to take over Girdwood or not. And expansion is kind of maintained to decide later when we know what's really needed. Red flags, or you think
I
that
think that sounds great. It kind of meets everybody's needs.
it's kind of what it feels like?
Yeah.
Because you were saying D would probably be the one that most people would want, or that you would be interested in buying because
Yeah.
it's smallest.
Yeah.
You could actually see what it would take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any?
We have other hands up
flags?
too, Kelly. So.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No, I just,
and just taking turns.
yeah, no, for
I
sure.
don't know if any, you can keep going, Kelly, but it is bringing up
red flag.
other questions too. And I don't know if Jennifer, you have something to summarize the thing that was, if you weren't finished before.
Let's
Okay.
talk it out.
Okay.
I didn't want to.
Yeah, this is a work session. So I'll go to Christina online with your hand up.
Thanks, Brianna. I appreciate being recognized. Hi, everybody. Hi, Sam. It's good to see you in person. Forgive me, I have some other things that I need to attend to at the condo this evening. So for everybody's edification around the table, where Turnagain Tree Care has its position is quite literally on the dotted line between D and C. And having been there for several years, I just want to point out that those green areas do truly represent the wetlands in this space. And those wetlands have a negative impact on our ability to maintain our site. If you were to drive down towards C and look to the right, you'll see that we've had to armor our slope with cottonwood rounds in order to prevent the fill that was placed on D to keep from washing out our area. We've had some pretty significant storm impacts. We've witnessed quite a few large trees falling. There is a very large one that was lost in the most recent storm a few weeks ago, right at the tippy top of where C is, that crashed into the area. So whereas I do agree with Kelly's assessment that the A area would be best served for the service area, definitely. C has the majority of the current holders. Bravo does have the most amount of civil work necessary to make the area usable, but also, depending on how it's platted, would go for the continuation. My big question mark is D. The history of D is that it was previously leased by James Glover with the hope of doing a hydroponics farm. I was very excited about this about 6 or 7 years ago when this came to fruition. That space was filled with the overburden that came from where the current hangar expansion occurred at the airport a couple of years ago. So I can confirm that the silt soil is really bad, which is why we have the armored slope to the east of us at our location. But also it's currently where there are logs stored from those that were harvested from the resort's continuing actions. So whereas we might want to see who's going to come in from as a major player, as Kelly said, and see who wants to buy up very limited commercial space here in Girdwood. We have been adaptive in the area, but not to an extent where we could really make improvements that would increase the and/or support any of the appraisal costs that go into this. And in our last meeting a couple of months ago with the HLB commissioners, both Sam and I kind of looked at each other with the shrugs of, wow, you really think those properties are worth that much? Because none of us small businesses could even begin to scrape the amount of money that would go into not only acquiring the land, but then also looking at the amount of wetlands that would need to be filled and knowing full well what the Corps of Engineers permitting for that would be pretty extensive. So those are my comments to augment the conversation about A, B, C, and D, but mostly focused on the C and D where our current business operations have been successful. Thank you for the opportunity to put forth our comments.
Christina, just a
Thank you.
follow-up question.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I mean, in some respects, do you think it would be an interesting test to let HLB try and sell D and B? And my sense is that maintaining C as a leased option wouldn't force anybody to buy, but people could have the option to buy. And if the market value doesn't support their assessed value, well, then that's good feedback to them that they're asking too much. I don't know. What do you see in that?
So that's a two-part question, Kelly, and I really appreciate the strategic thinking on that. Limited commercial property in the Girdwood Bowl is going to increase the value regardless. It will require a very specialized buyer who's going to be willing to go toe to toe with the Corps of Engineers to get what they need. I mean, you're looking at a buyer who's willing to put in electric, which just to get it from the fake cul-de-sac down to Sam's space was, Sam, what was it, like 50 grand or so, just to get electric down to that area. But then also we're not offering any other services. So anybody who were to buy D would be coping with those two. And then B, I mean, we've all been down there. We know the topography. You've got a mound of soil where people walk their dogs. You've got a permit holder who has significantly outraced the bounds of their permit holdings. But B is the most advantageous, truly, Kelly, because it goes to the phase 3 expansion. And that's what I think is very limiting in the information that's been provided by HLB. There's a 2014 planning document that I'd like to share with this body that demonstrates what phase 3 could be. Because when you plat out and expand the road that goes from the cul-de-sac along the dotted line that curves between Bravo and Charlie there, you have an extensive opportunity to plat and continue on with new properties. To give up B would limit Girdwood Valley Service Area's opportunity to buy in on what other economic future expansion opportunities that we have. So D, yes. Delta, yes. Bravo, no.
Can we scroll down to where it shows the expansion? Didn't they?
I understood that the road, right away, according to HLB, the road right away was on C.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of shows.
That's where you want to be. Sorry.
Yeah, that shows the expansion. That shows like subplatting of a lot of.
One option have a turnaround that was a turnaround? Or not? Am I making that up?
Are you talking about that?
I think
back at the end,
future expansion, that big expansion one looks like.
that at the end of option 4, is that what you're talking about there?
I thought it was not the full build out, but one of the other three options, I thought there was a mock turnaround unless I imagined that.
Does that
That
road
might have
look
been
like
on
it's
the-
going through C or through B?
The expansion goes through C.
Okay, so then as long as we maintain C, we keep the opportunity for the expansion in the future.
That's not yet been validated by utilities. So the 2014 did have a conditional on it that neither sewer, electricity, or water had been validated that it could follow the intended path of this suggested plat.
Okay.
So Christina, did you have the document that you mentioned sharing? Do you want to put it up on the
Forgive me,
screen?
friends, my copy is hard copy. It was from the archives from when I served the administration a few years ago. But I'd be glad to take a copy of it and circulate it to Girdwood Board of Supervisors if they're interested. It would be unearthing an element of this that correlated with, and Margaret, you might have some of the information of when we were looking at expanding Cariolus down to the Rouen area through the Southtown site. So it was on the precipice of a lot of that development when we were still looking at having the potential for community investment funds from the state. But I'd be glad to share it with the community here.
If I could
Oh, yeah. So
jump
go
in.
back to what you were saying.
Okay,
Sorry.
so I think whatever that we communicate to HOB, we can communicate that without needing to second guess the planning here, which hasn't even been done, that we have that GBOS is interested in maintaining the road right away and not losing that to any land sales at this point. And so we can put that as part of, you asked us for our opinion, this is our opinion. We want the road right of way preserved.
I just captured, we could put whereas that the sewer water expansion hasn't been validated, we could refer to that and then have a therefore that we should validate the expansion capability is maintained through C. Just actually explicitly call it out because we would want, that does feel important considering the uncertainty.
So HLB turns out to be particularly interested in not doing things that are going to create an uproar down the line. And so one of the reasons that they're asking for the opinion up here is so that they up front is so that they can turn around and say, well, you asked for this. So I think it is important to be clear on what we want, and we can phrase that in terms. We don't have to phrase that in terms of the lot lines for planning that hasn't even been done yet. We can phrase that in terms of maintaining future utility, so or utilization. So we can phrase what we want.
It should be
to
platted
include
such that,
yeah, we preserve
actually just say
the
that.
potential road right away for access
And
to
utility.
phase 3.
Road and utility.
Utilities, right.
Right.
I like that idea, sure. Because we don't want to prevent future opportunity
Right.
in anything. So future forward thinking and future minded. And with all the the discussion and ideas thus far, I am curious because I don't know how many, but are we missing any of the lessees or leasees beside
Are we
Kyle
missing
said-
any of the what?
the leasees?
Oh,
Yes.
Kyle mentioned where Bob is, but if we did the proposed option right now, would we eliminate anyone?
and
Are they all,
I think we'd have to rearrange C, which is possible, but it is going to be tight on, it is going to be kind of tight. I think it's doable. And if it really did seem like the best option, I'm sure we could all figure it out.
and then a question I probably should know the answer to, how long are they 1 year leases right now? Yes,
So that's very good. The term is permittees.
permittees.
So HLB cannot write long-term leases.
Mhm.
And so everybody's on a 1-year, 30-day revocable permit.
Okay. I like the sound of numbers much bigger than one.
yeah,
Yeah, when I began my permit at C, I was originally given first right of refusal in my contract. So it was a little of if something was to come for sale. So while was still short term, it kind of gave me the security to make business decisions that now I'm like, oh no, what do I do if it all just goes away? So if we could do some sort of multi-year things just to give us some security. And what is Kyle, do you know why we can't be given long-term leases or is it can't or
Code regulation,
it's a code regulation?
code would have to be changed in order to make it happen.
Does it restrict long-term permits? Are permits capped at a year?
They're capped at a year with 30-day revocable clause to them.
Okay.
But it was done in phase one.
In phase one, they were on permittees, but when they went to sell, they gave first right of refusal to those phase one permittees. So those guys were on the same thing there.
On the same.
Yep, yep. And
So-
and they did all self-improvements to those lots. So HLB didn't fund any of the improvements in those lots.
Yeah, but HLB set a precedent with that for people like Sam and me, because right now we pay over $800 a year, which for most sitting around the table, $800 doesn't sound like that much, but the amount that our company pays in vehicle improvements and for our own plowing in order to access our space is pretty significant. It is just the right to use the space. There's no access, there's no maintenance, there's no improvements capable. So when there are ruts caused by the heavy equipment that are earlier in the space around the cul-de-sac for us to get down, we suffer from that. And if we have storm work for us as people that take care of trees on properties, we have to call and get the space plowed so that we can go get our equipment in order to respond to seasonal, what I would call unseasonal work. So the idea that I would pay 6 digits for something that's unimproved as a part of a sale is not something that at our time, our business is willing to pay for until their utilities put in.
Does anybody in the room see a better option than A to the surface area, D and B, HLB can sell, maintain C with the provision that they verify that it enables future expansion? Is there another option that even seems viable from where we sit now?
I had one question about that. When I was coming up with this option, I wasn't sure if you wanted to propose, sale of 2 lots or sale of 1 to see how it went. And I also couldn't figure out whether we would want it to be B or D. As has already been mentioned, D is smaller, kind of more accessible lot, and then B has had some more improvements on it. And Kyle, did you have something to add to that?
Well, I mean, one thing to think about is that D and B sell, there could be a fund set up to help improve the access to the permittees. I still think that snow removal is still a responsibility of the permittees to take care of, like every other one of the property owners around here. But once you get to the cul-de-sac, the improvements could be a driveway access improvement, could be funded through the sales from D and B to go. And then once you get to the permittee sites and it becomes the responsibility of the permittee, I mean, at $800 a year, then you can put money back into improving your site. And that was the precedent set before with the first 3 lots where Redmond and Andy and Nick are. And so, at $800 a year, that should help you to, put those improvements in there. It's understandable that you might not want to because you don't have a long-term lease there, which can be frustrating, but that's the part of, well, then as a commercial business, how do we come up with a business plan that allows us to purchase a lot and become our own owners and get out from the umbrella of a government helping subsidize your business operation. So there's some options that way, and, this isn't like we're building workforce housing here. This is a commercial operation area. And so, there's HLB is willing to work, but at the same time, there has to be a business plan that can work with that in that aspect.
I like what you said about asking that the proceeds be returned directly to the improvements of the industrial park, like making that request explicitly.
Yeah. And I've mentioned that to HLB. They seemed open to it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I have some thoughts I will try to bring together, but acknowledging the acreage that is not developable because of the Class A wetlands and the hardy people that are making a living as much as possible in these lots now, if they were given the option to first refusal to buy any of the lots that would come up for sale, even if that was like an insult or however it would be taken, that they have the chance to do that while hopefully there's diversity in something like the future opportunity, like the hydroponics that would need something very diverse than what's going on right now, because everyone there cannot have a heated shelter and operate a business or commercial operation. So I would like to see what we've already said too, like open-ended so that there could be options in the future for something more diverse and developable and sell. And then the numbers on the top that are in the boxes, those are the appraised of each one, right?
Correct.
So if we were to, and that's official numbers?
It's a official appraisal that they
Yeah,
received.
that's right. That was, okay.
If I may say that, just really
Mhm.
quickly on that, when I spoke with HLD, they understand that that it's really hard to get good appraisals for those, and so they're not necessarily
Okay.
committed to those values.
Because with the first idea that I appreciated was for A, where that's what would, however it is, the cost would become our burden or some burden for 327,000.
Although there is a provision in the statutes that allow it to be sold below market value.
Oh, for the public.
Mhm.
So that is a calibration point, but not an end point from our perspective.
Right, and what I'm thinking about, so I was gonna say in terms of our whereases, if we come up with a resolution for this, I would include in the whereas GBSA has done improvements in this area and has assisted with the management in this area and is part of the municipality. So there are absolutely roads in which I would very much hope that that's not what we would end up paying.
Especially if we ask for the proceeds to go back into the industrial
Yes.
park, then it's even less sweat off their back because it's just less proceeds that they have to. So if we keep it circular and included, then it enhances the likelihood that we pay less as a service area.
Also, it wasn't my concern, but it's valid probably that if someone were to buy it and just sit on it, would there be a provision that could be stated that they have to develop within a certain amount of years? So it's not like B just doesn't happen or something.
Yeah, I meant to say that if I liked the idea of kind of agreeing to sales in principle or agreeing to the idea in principle, but then that's just the beginning of it, right? Then it needs to be platted and then people have to come forward with their bids and proposals. And so that's a separate thing at this point, and it would certainly be great if HLP involved us in that as well. They seem, I mean, like, I feel like we could take advantage of, well, let me just say this, I felt like they were trying to work with us, or at least trying to work with me when I was talking to them, and I was particularly really happy to hear that we didn't have to do these all or nothing packages, like
Yeah.
all of option 2, like, the fact that they were willing to hold on to C, because I will say one thing that is not an option, I don't think, is for GDSA to take over any kind of ownership or management of that.
Of all of
right
it?
now.
Yeah.
That is just not a mess of arms. We're to tackle, we don't have the staff and wherewithal. So I know we're looking for more local control. If we just had control over A, that'd be more local control than we have right now.
So a question for context, please. And I should know this, but the 3 lots that were kind of in the original sale, weren't those about acre and a half, or are they acre?
You talking about phase one?
Yeah, phase one, were they?
No,
acre?
they're smaller. They might have been 3/4 of an acre at the
Okay.
biggest. And
And
then
what did they sell for?
I don't have the pricing on me, but
Does anybody recall that?
it's mostly appraisal rates.
Yeah, because it seems that some of those, I mean, especially something like D could get even subdivided down into 2 lots, and maybe there might be some options for reducing some of the sizes there to make it a little more easier of a bite of the apple, if you will, to get into a lot.
That came up before, and I think the problem with that is every lot has to have so much frontage
Yeah.
on the circle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it looks like maybe it could be done if there was, some material brought in, but as it is now.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at something like, let's say, Lot D, there might be an acre of Lot D that's worth, $100,000, but that, the upper left-hand corner of Lot D is not $100,000.
Right.
And so, it's there's probably 3/4 of an acre that's worth anything, and the rest of it is all kind of chaff, if you will. And so there might be some opportunity to look into, the developable parts of these lots could be, as much smaller and could lead to lower appraised value. I don't know.
And would that idea mean that you say Chugach, Kyle, Chugach would have to, they can't do something until it's been, I don't know if the word was platted, but
Yes, platted.
They want 4 corners.
4 corners, that was what you said, okay.
So and it was touched on there, the way this is plat or this concept is shown is every lot connects to the cul-de-sac. So that prevents having to put in the sewer line and the lift station, which is easily just $1 million right there. So this way it can be separated out, and then, if somebody wants to eventually tap into sewer, then they're going to have to go through that process on their own.
And Christina, you've had your hand up. I don't know when it was up. Sorry.
It was up when you asked the original question about, does anybody see anything different? So I appreciate the definition of being a hardy business. I will be adding that to my business card in the near future. I believe the marvelous Mrs. Margaret is driving. Is that a true statement? If so, could I get it tabbed down to the photo of, there we go, that extension. Okay. So a little bit of history here. So you can see how C and D are further subdivided in these areas, but then also A and B, and then further into the other areas. What I would like to point out with a lot of this is that in a couple years ago, I had the fortune to represent the municipality, and I was talking to Little Bears to go in on the 3 lots that you see on the far left. Those would comprise of what is currently D and a few others. What that did was it provided for our community to have the extra groceries and retail space that would be promulgated by some of our development opportunities. Opposite of that, in what is currently B, but then further down and alongside some of our trail network, there was a company that was interested in putting up a multi-family dwelling unit, because from that vantage point overlooking the creek and connected to the trail, there was some really great viewscapes that could be had, but also people weren't so bothered by coming through what is, considered a refuse and industrial area, because if they had the view and they had the access to the trail and some of the retail, it would be advantageous. Based on the feedback from the land use meeting last week for the new development here in Town Square, I think that would still be a ripe opportunity for someone. What I would encourage this body to encompass in any of its whereas statements would be future personal, public-private partnership development opportunities that took care of our people once our community grows, which it continues to do so, but that also adds on some advantageous housing so as to have almost like a checks and balances within the area. I also think that this lends itself to still providing for the Girdwood Valley service area as right of first refusal, as well as some of the business owners that are in the spaces. But it also takes advantage of the most maximum extent practicable of those areas that are not impacted by wetlands, and puts the onus on any future developers, not local businesses, to bear the brunt of any of the future development opportunities that expands the utilities into the area. That's what I would encourage, and what I see differently to include into the whereas statements that protect us in our current interest now for those local community members and local employers, but still leaves a lot of deference for how to grow organically once developments continue to happen in the Upper Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Anyone can chime in.
Sam, you got any other reflections?
I kind of like in some ways how this is platted, with there's a lot of frontage to the circle there in A. You're giving it potential to be divided into smaller lots. And then kind of the same with you, it would take some work with B, but maybe the entry could be widened, allowing it to be 2 lots as well.
Yeah, I think when you look at this future expansion, the ability to subdivide the A, B, and the ability to subdivide all of them is enabled by the extension of the road and the additional frontage. So the one cost of disposing of B and D now and keeping C for future expansion is it eliminates the ability to subdivide as is enabled in the full vision. So that's the proverbial cost, but maybe the benefit of the all of the above solution justifies that compromise.
Could we scroll down a little bit more? I believe it's farther down here that has the expense of this. There we go. This has issues with being both financially and politically viable at this time. And
Yeah, no, like at this time.
Yes. So anyway, like much as I understand the advantage to this plotting, we hold out for this option. One, we're not going to get it right now. And two, our current permittees are not going to get any of what they need. The ones who need options for buying land or a permanent place aren't going to get that. And the ones who need some assurances, at least for the next few years, are not going to get that.
What this implies, though, is that if there is a future expansion and the road is extended, whoever buys B and D could subdivide their lots and sell off parts of it, probably. So it does give, I mean, it's business risk because you don't know if it's going to be developed, blah, 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 blah. But, and if there is more frontage, it would enable that for those users. So it's not necessarily lost forever. It's an option. I still think it's the best solution we have now that balances the current needs, protects current businesses, gives opportunity for people to buy in who want it, supports the service area and maintains expansion with the compromise that it limits the subdividability of a few lots,
Of lot A and C.
A, B, and D. Well, all of them, like A, B, C, and D are all subdivided. And the C, it would keep the ability to subdivide C, but A, B, and D,
Yeah.
subdividability, I made that word up. It's gonna go online here soon, would be compromised.
Here's another question. I know, Kyle, I can't remember. Can you talk a little bit about the service area interest in this, and particularly the financial? I know you talked about, we talked about some of this, but can you talk a little bit about our financial interest in being able to work with A more effectively?
I mean, from a taxpayer perspective, it just gives a true operating zone for the services that the taxpayers pay for. And so basically, right now, we are scattered about and we don't really have efficient operation in what goes on. And so for expanding into this, you know, like, for example, just a small thing was we tried to run an emergency woodlot after that last big windstorm. And due to the way our operations are set up in the winter and the fact that we still have stockpiles of material that we didn't get to haul out before freeze out, we didn't have a location to do it. And so we tried to work with getting on D, but D had temporary logs on it. And so what we just didn't have was the efficiency to have operations in there. Fire department has talked forever about the fact that they don't have a training center, which then affects our insurance rating. That was a markdown they got because they didn't have insurance, because they're sending their staff to Anchorage to train. And so when we have those training events and a fire breaks out down here, well, half the staff are in town at training facilities. So those type of things. And then just in the winter, you know, having actually a real bus bar that we can plug into over there and have all our equipment on our lot and out of the way of C and B, and have everything, and then be able to close a gate and keep people out of there. You know, we've had fuel stolen out of the machines. We've had different things go on. So the contractors get upset about it. So that leads us to having to do some measures to help prevent that. So it's just in that aspect, as a service area, as a town of its own, we should have a traditional operational lot in that aspect. So we look in that way.
And did you also mention that we have additional time and expense being taken up right now in the way the sand is stored in the winter, that maybe not this winter, but.
Well, yeah, we ripped through most of our sand this year, but yeah, no, we have to pay for salt, and then, you know, we're always tarping it and we're re-tarping it, and it's not very efficient and honestly not very clean. And so if we can actually build a pad, put our sand on asphalt or concrete, and have a real slab to go in there. And eventually, if we could ever build an inside storage, which could be a tent system or some sort of dome system, or even a building, it would just make things so much more efficient for us and what we do. And then, you know, right now, like Bob Wolf runs his power cord right through the middle of our heavy equipment area. So we're trying not to break that during the year and things like that. So these things are just, you know, I've been down there now for 14 years, and we've been working these same problems for 14 years, and we're getting to the point where it's just not sustainable, and the frustration levels are through the roof. So I feel like we should just get over this hump and try to get it done.
Thank you, Kyle. And for that question, I've just summarized Lot A takes huge precedent,
Yes.
like you started off the meeting with. And
Yes.
Christina has her hand up, and we have less than 9 minutes remaining for the meeting. So anyone has quick things to add or question, definitely
Sure.
use the time.
Thank you, Brianna. I appreciate that. I'll be brief. The cost estimate that the Heritage Land Bank presented is not based on reality. But I also see that there are large developments happening in the near future from major stakeholders and anchor points in our community that need a place for disposal. The small road that I built this past year, Mezquinic Way, and the sewer that I installed cost $230,000. So that little piece of road that you see going up next to the little blue cabin has $230,000 worth of earthwork and a sewer in it in order to expand into my half-acre lot. That said, the major cost of that was disposing of the material all the way back to Anchorage. If there is a way that this service area could accommodate further the disposal from Holton Hills and from the expansion of Alyeska with material that would be better than what was placed in location D from the Department of Transportation was silty soil from the alluvial fan that is the Glacier Creek area. I think that the expansion into those other platted areas would be best served. It saves them a ton of money, would recoup with the potential $1 million loss that is estimated by the HLB in that slide that was shown previously, and would have significant economic dividends to reinvest in the frontage and further divestiture that you see in the expanded phase 3 lots. That is my recommendation for some of the whereases, as well as this community's lens when they look to approve master plans for major developments in our community, is how do we take that material and rather than looking at it going north, using it to build the economic vitality of our industrial area. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess, if nobody else.
No jumping.
Well, I wonder if we feel, if the body feels like we can at least move towards requesting the disposal of A to GBSA. Like at the very least, can we at least start there and see what HLB?
We should do a resolution that says that we want to maintain C and that we support movement toward disposal of B and E, you know, in a non-committal way, and that asks them to work with us. And then make some of the points we captured tonight and whereas and therefores, you know, make sure that some expansion can work and stuff like that. But I'd like to see a resolution that summarizes a recommendation that articulates our concerns and needs for verification before we're rubber stamping this plan.
Is that the general feel of the body?
I'd be comfortable with most of the ideas that were discussed today. And I think since HLB is requesting, since we haven't told them yet what we want, the best form would probably be a resolution or a letter. If a letter's fine with them, I don't know, we could ask what's best if we can't know too many specifics, but whereas isn't there for fine.
The language of the body, no?
Uh-huh.
Right.
Do you know when they want the answer, Kyle?
As soon as you guys get it.
All right.
And I know that there's a certain time pressure for the service area because, you know, Kyle's been dealing with this for 14
But
years.
it's old business, so.
I could, so
Monday.
that's what I'm asking, like,
Yeah.
can I bring a rough draft to the, you know, I can bring a rough draft to the next meeting.
Yes, please.
I think that'd be great.
I would certainly support the, you know, prioritizing A to our, you know, Girdwood Valley service area. Maintaining C is kind of like really setting the bar low, and I think we need to figure out how to enhance C and what we can do to create opportunity for Sam. And, you know, we might have to find something, we're gonna be relying on Sam and the people in C to accommodate Bob. You know, if
Unless
he
he
gets
buys
moved
D or
out
B.
of there, you know, so, you know, there's, but I think that we need to set the bar a little higher than just maintaining C.
And then implied in that statement from Brian, I hope this would make sense to suggest further engagement on C and what to do next.
Yeah.
Because if we said it in really clear sentences and whereas, it'd be hard to edit that.
Yeah.
But the sooner we get a version of the letter or whereas before Monday, so we're not like trying to get better.
Yeah.
More details, I don't know.
Then I send that to you then?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
I think,
And
correct me if I'm wrong, but whoever would buy D and B would have the option to sublet other users on it, right? So that's another potential, right? So it's like I could buy D, but right now there's multiple people, you know what I mean? It's like the quote only issue is that there's only one driveway, but like it's pretty good at getting along, you know, so there is that implicit
Yeah.
option, even though not through ownership, there could be a purchase and a subleasing model that
Oh.
might work for some
Well, the
businesses.
other thing is Bob's made it clear he's wanting a permanent solution. He's not
Yeah.
looking for kind of the same thing I think as some of the other
So
committees on the
presumably
CE.
buy.
So, right, exactly. And so I wanted to have an option, him and anyone else looking for a permanent solution.
Yeah.
If we, you know, at least lot. And anyway.
No, I just mean like.
Kelly,
if bought D,
there's no bank that's going to underwrite that. That would be a cash offer for any of those lands based on the wetlands alone, just for your edification.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying if somebody
Hmm.
did buy it, they would have the option, you know, so it, anyways, I'm not saying that it makes it more viable to anybody, but just maybe it does. I was just riffing out loud at possibility I see.
Well, Nick's a prime example of that, lot 5. He's got a parking storage there,
Yeah,
you know, so he's doing that right now.
but then if somebody wanted a 10-year lease, so say Bob buys it and he wants to lease part of it to Sam for 5 years, okay, well, there you go. Like it's, you know, or whoever, right? Like it exists
Yes,
as an option.
yes.
Any roundtable type comments in the last minute and a half? Cake. Cake is next door. Yes. Anything about GIP? Sam, thank you very much for coming.
Okay, thanks.
Very appreciated. Thank you, Kyle, for clarifying. I guess if that's it, we'll wrap as I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Right.
Thank you.